Hi there, I'm Jess Arce, and I am the founder and director of 3D Learning Experts. We specialize in tutoring for people with dyslexia, dysgraphia, and dyscalculia. And you may not know this about me, but I am also dyslexic. Most people know that 3 of my 4 children have dyslexia, and a lot of people are aware that my husband is also dyslexic. But for some reason, people don't seem to know that I too am dyslexic. And so my husband nor I were diagnosed with dyslexia like most people today, right? Or most people my age as well. My 2 profound and severe kids were diagnosed with dyslexia. And so when we were leaving Texas where they were diagnosed and where they were receiving our instruction during school, my youngest son's dyslexia teacher said, you need to learn how to teach him in a way that he understands. And so that is how my journey began for my profession, for my knowledge that I'm dyslexic, for where my world is today. If it weren't for that one teacher, I would probably be selling real estate or doing some kind of sales job, because that's my primary background. My background is education and sales. And I was a preschool teacher. I owned my own preschool. In my house, we converted our garage into a little preschool. And so when my oldest 2 kids were young, that's what I did for a living. And I didn't really make any money. I spent most of my money on buying more supplies. So my husband suggested, he was a mortgage broker at the time. And so he suggested that I get my real estate license. And so I said, well, let me study during the summer and see what I think and then decide, because I loved doing preschool, but it wasn't bringing in any money. It was just, I just enjoyed it. It was more of a hobby. So I got licensed as a real estate agent in 1999 in Las Vegas. And my husband and I were very successful with our careers as mortgage lenders and realtor. And he gave me clients. I really never had to find my clients back then. We had friends who we worked for, or he had clients and he'd give me some of the clients. I didn't work full time. I was a full-time mom, and I did real estate. I mean, technically it was considered full-time, and I actually closed more deals than the average realtor did. But for me, it didn't feel like full-time because I wasn't working all day long. But neither my husband or I knew we were dyslexic. However, we both chose careers that are common amongst dyslexic people. Sales is a very common career for dyslexic people. Being a construction worker or because the thing is that dyslexic people are usually bright. And so we choose careers that can exemplify our intelligence, but don't require a whole lot of academics or, requirement to take tests to move up. We rely more on ourselves to be successful rather than hoping for promotions, because it is sometimes harder for dyslexic people to compete in the workforce when you've got so many people who are, well educated. And not to say that being well educated is more valuable. I definitely do not believe that that is more valuable, but in our society, that is something that is deemed more valuable if you have a college degree. And so as a dyslexic person, it's much easier to pave the way for ourselves to be successful, to just lean on ourselves or rely on ourselves to work hard. Dyslexic people typically work harder during the school years when we're, in school. So we are accustomed to having to work harder. And because we have gifts that other people may not have, we are 3D thinkers. We think of the big picture, the whole thing, not just what's right in front of us, but to encompass the entire potential of our business or of our future. And so that really is what I think was the driving force. I was an entrepreneur when I was 10 years old. My best friend and I took these little books. They weren't even this big. They were smaller than that. They're like that big. Little books. And they were in the dumpster across the street from where my best friend lived. I grew up in New York City and she lived in Soho. And so there were still factories in Soho back then. Now it's probably all residential lofts. So we grabbed these little books out of the dumpster and we sat on her dock and we sold them for 25 cents, which back then 25 cents was probably equal to, I don't know, $2. Inflation, that's so funny to think about. But anyway, and so that was my first little business and I really enjoyed it. And so my husband and I, we always encouraged our kids to be entrepreneurs, and only one of our kids has the natural inclination to be an entrepreneur. My daughter always says, "Oh, I'm an entrepreneur too," but she's an entrepreneur because her husband really wanted to own rental properties. She, after working for my husband and I for 3 or 4 years in our vacation rental business, she really wasn't interested in doing that. So yes, she is part of an entrepreneurial team as well, but I don't know that she's as passionate about that. And my oldest son and my middle child really are opposed to having their own businesses. So it's not for everyone. However, for my husband and I, that was definitely the best direction for us to go. And as I just mentioned, my husband and I own vacation rentals. We have 7 units in the Las Vegas area and 4 are vacation rentals, and currently 3 of them are long-term rentals. They were originally all vacation rentals, but the city where we have the 3 of them no longer allowed it. So, and then we also have rentals, 2 units up in Northern California where we currently live, and we talk about buying something else, maybe a bed and breakfast or a boutique hotel or something like that, and continuing it because we really enjoy it. You know, it plays into my real estate background and then my decorating background as well, and customer service. We're very customer service oriented. So we've just been really successful doing it and we really enjoy it. And so that's what we hope to have carry us through retirement, because since we are self-employed, we don't have a pension. I'm shocked that we will qualify for Social Security, and fingers crossed there still is Social Security around in another 10 or 15 years when we can start collecting. But our real estate is really that's our bread and butter. And I mean, I love my tutoring business, and it's so amazing to change lives. Real estate doesn't change lives. I mean, I guess owning a house versus renting a house is different, but my tutoring company literally changes lives, changes the trajectory of someone who may not otherwise have learned how to read. And, you know, reading is very valuable in our society. So that becomes an important factor. But my tutoring business is something that is a full-time business and doesn't seem like it's something I could retire with, because I have to be working in my business versus our rental properties. We don't have to be working in the businesses quite as much. So, you know, that's the difference between the businesses that I own. I think business ownership requires, you know, you to be willing to take chances that a lot of people aren't willing to take, and to think outside of the box, to try new things. When we first started our vacation rental business, it actually started at about the same time as I started my tutoring business back up. So it was 2016, and we had lived in California almost a year, and I got my real estate license in California, because that was the plan. Was I was going to get back into real estate when we moved back to California in 2014, and my husband was going to get back into mortgages, because after the whole 2008 thing, we kind of, you know, went in a different direction, and I started doing daycare, and then I was working as a homeschool teacher at a homeschool program. So anyway, I had gotten my license, but it didn't take off. Like, I did all the same stuff I did when we moved to Texas, where I got my real estate license and I built that business on my own. But real estate didn't take off for me when I moved to California, and mortgage didn't take off for my husband when we got there. So I got back into tutoring totally unintentionally, which actually both times I started my tutoring business, it really wasn't intentional. There was just such a huge need, and people saw the success that they asked me to tutor their kids in Las Vegas, and then when we moved to California. So anyway, my tutoring business had just started back up, and we had a spare bedroom at the house we were living in Southern California, and we had met some people from Prague, from the Czech Republic, and they told us about Airbnb. This was before Americans knew what Airbnb was. And so I said, well, let's try it. Let's see if we can, make $1,000 a month. And we turned that bedroom into a little studio. It had the bathroom. We put a little dry bar, the coffee maker, and a microwave, and we put a couch in the bedroom and a bed, and it had a built-in dresser and a closet, of course. And so we started with that, and the first month we made what our goal was. And so within a couple of months, we were doubling what we were hoping to make. So that was how our vacation rental business started. So he quickly changed his mind once we started making money. And then when our daughter wanted to move back to Las Vegas, we said, well, let's buy a property in Vegas. And that's how we ended up with the Vegas one. And we actually, my husband and I moved into her bedroom, and then we started renting out our bedroom, because both of those rooms, the one were already renting out, and our daughter's bedroom and the master bedroom had sliding glass doors from the outside, so people never came into our house. And so I'm telling you this because this was out of the box thinking, right? Like, most people are like, what? I would never think to do that. And a lot of people are like, oh, I'm not comfortable having people in my space. They weren't really in our space. They were only in our backyard. And back then we mostly had Australian guests and guests from like Asian countries. And they were just so nice and gracious. I mean, we would have people from China bringing us tea and just have great conversations with people from other countries. And then, so we bought our property in Vegas, and we bought it with the intention to do short-term rentals. And so we looked at 30 properties and decided on this one property that was less than 3 miles from the Strip, and it had a studio apartment attached to the main apartment. And then we ended up bringing my mom's tiny house out there, and we converted the garage for my daughter to live in. So we have 4 units on this 1/2 acre property, and the pool that was originally there was filled in by the previous owners. During COVID, we ended up pulling out, refurbishing, refurnishing, redoing the entire pool, and that's really drawn a lot of people because it's hot in Vegas in the summer and they like swimming. And so that has been a great success for us. And so just the out of the box thinking is definitely been a benefit for our success. And with my tutoring business, like, a lot of times I have to think of new ways to market or new ways to get in front of you so that you know that we are able to help your child or you as an adult with reading and spelling, writing and note-taking, or math, and that our program is specifically designed for people with dyslexia, dysgraphia, and dyscalculia. It's not like your big box tutoring centers where they don't really know how to help the specific needs. When my daughter was younger and I didn't know she was dyslexic yet, I would hire teachers to tutor her, and they never knew how to help her any better than they did during school because they weren't trained to help someone with dyslexia. So it's really important, if you or your child have dyslexia and you want help, to get the right kind of help, and not just someone who says, oh, we'll do one-on-one instruction, and because they're just putting a Band-Aid on the problem. We get to the root of the problem. And that took time to, figure out what were the best techniques to get to the root of the problem to help someone be successful with math. There's very few math tutoring programs for people with dyslexia. There's very few tutoring programs around for people with dyscalculia or difficulty with math. Today, there's a lot more tutoring options for dyslexia. However, we were one of the original ones because back in 2012, when I started, there really wasn't much available for anyone. That's why I started helping my own kids, was because there weren't really any options around. And today we're still one of the very few options for math and for the writing program. So, we have had to think outside of the box to figure out what works. So anyway, if you are new to the world of dyslexia, dysgraphia, dyscalculia, and you just don't know where to start, first of all, don't feel bad. You know, you are where you are, and right now is your starting point. And we all had to start somewhere to find out. My daughter was 12 before I had an answer that she was dyslexic, and I searched literally for almost 10 years. So I have lots of videos you can watch to learn more about dyslexia, dysgraphia, dyscalculia, autism, similar neurodiversities, and we are here to help with tutoring if that's something that you are looking for, and be a solution for you and your family and your child or children. Remember, dyslexia, dysgraphia, and dyscalculia are hereditary. So if your child has it, it's likely you or your child's other parent are where it comes from. And that's okay, you know. There's varying degrees, and a lot of times parents may not be as severe as their child, and they figure out ways to cope. But when it's really severe, it's harder to figure out ways to cope. If you found this video to be helpful, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and like or comment on our podcast so that more people can see and hear our podcast.